The Hollywood Actor Podcast with Clint Obenchain, Part 2.
I was kind of done with physical labor. I had, by then spent thousands of hours, and it kind of spent a lot of my life and energy doing it. And I was just kind of done with it. And I felt like it was a hard decision I had to make to just pretty much never go back to it. And I couldn't find creativity with it, and I couldn't find fulfillment. And I know that you can find that within the crew positions. And, I was surely ignorant of that, but it was what I chose, and I felt like that there's a power in saying no. So I believed I would find my way, even though I rejected lots of paths.
Yeah, well, that can help you find eventually the path that you're meant to be on, which it sounds like it has.
It has. It's been a slow realization and understanding of that, and just kind of, it's been slow. It's been 6 years now into it, and because I didn't have a lot of training prior to this, or I'd gotten some workshop training at ABQ Actors Studio, I jumped right in. And so the learning has been, after having some workshops with Laura Cunningham, a lot of the learning has been on set, on the job experience. And because in the beginning I didn't work very often, I just had to absorb and be open to learning everything I could, sometimes within just 3 hours. And thankfully, a lot can be learned on set. So I'm glad that's what happened.
Oh, learning at the Albuquerque studios where Laura Cunningham had her specific class.
Yeah, so I kind of committed to her. Right. Once I decided to take her class, then I wanted to commit to her so that I wasn't getting too confused with different methods, different styles of teaching. And I resonated, she resonated with me, what she was teaching. And, so I haven't really taken much other classes besides then. It's been a couple years since I've been back to her, but I consider her our mentor. So anytime I have questions or exciting things to share, after, my mom and Sheila, I go to her, and she's willing to give advice still. So I still consider her, that I train with her and connect with her.
Yeah, it sounds like a real mentor, a friend.
I feel it's, at least for me personally, I feel it's necessary to have a mentor.
I do as well. I think it's very important, especially when you're just starting out, to have that beacon of light, because like you were saying, there's so many different ways to go. There's so many different people that are going to tell you one thing, and someone will say, no, it's completely the opposite. You should listen to me. Million books, videos, right. You can be inundated with all this information, that it becomes increasingly confusing and starts to shut you down. And that's exactly what you don't want, especially at the inception of your career. You're looking to open things up, see what's possible, and work within a structure, but still, you don't want to close yourself down if you don't have to.
Sure. And I just didn't see the benefit of studying too much, especially because I didn't know if that was the way to go. And without going to a conservatory or a place like that, I didn't have a foundation to understand what I was getting into. So I just kind of had to put my blind trust in Laura and then believe in myself. And she believed in me, which made the difference, that I could pursue acting. And, early on, she said that she believed I would do well. And I've carried that with me all this time. And that's been enough to give me strength and faith that it'll be okay.
That's so nice to hear from people you respect, right?
Yes, there's a lot of gratitude, and people like her are so giving, and they may not know the impact they have on others, but for some of us that this is what we're meant to do, it's what we need to hear.
And how that opened you up, this this brief but intense study with Laura Cunningham, which we've actually, we've had her on the Hollywood Actor Podcast. We've been talking to a lot of notable actors and some acting teachers here on the podcast, which is exciting. So any listeners, they can revisit that episode to learn a little bit more about Laura. And I'm sure she inspired you not just to embrace and find your way within the New Mexico film industry, but also with your muscularity as an individual. I was reading that the night shift co-star that you booked, you were able to book without an agent. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So I can only tell you for my side what happened.
Sure.
Because nobody has shared with me what exactly happened. But my interpretation is that this was the third season of the night shift, and they were so generous to the local community, and they brought kind of almost everybody on that show. So I think the first part is they ran out of certain types of actors to get on there. And I've been told over and over again that your look is so important, and it might be the first important thing. And my look is, I'm slender. I look like I've been through some stuff. I've got tattoos. I was at a good age, and somehow the casting directors found me and knew that I had some training with Laura, and they trusted that. So I just got a phone call out of nowhere, and they asked me to audition. They sent me the sides. So I used what she taught me to break down the sides to try to understand what it was about. And then 2 days later, had the audition, and then had the call back that evening in front of this small room in front of the director and writer and producer and the casting director. And the director I recognized, his name was Timothy Busfield. And I was just so excited and not really understanding what was happening. And when I recognized him, I was like, hey, that's cool. And I didn't feel an enormous amount of pressure because it was just something new to do. And I did well, and I improvised and did my own thing on it. And I felt that first opportunity was a test because the character was a drug addict. He had overdosed. He's brought back to life. He's not grateful to the doctor. He swears at the doctor, and then he defecates on the bed. And so, my first words were swearing at a doctor. My first action, was defecating on the bed. And my first character was an ungrateful drug addict. And so I quickly had to adjust and kind of accept that this may be a normal thing, and I should have fun with it and not take personal offense to it. So that was my attitude toward it.
Wow. That's a lot for a co-star. That's fantastic. How fun, right?
Yeah. It was super fun, and it was a great, I felt like it was beginner's luck for me. And the scene, we spent at least a couple hours on it. And by the end, when we got to the close-up, by then it felt, like it was more really happening. So I wasn't having to pretend. And the director was just yelling things out for me yelling new dialogue for me to say. And it was a lot of fun. And then by the end, the crew and the director were applauding, and kind of like the perfect experience. And I've been trying to, I've been chasing that first experience ever since. And it's a little hard to get. That's not the experience you get every time. Yeah.
But you've been rolling the dice, and you've had a number of opportunities with Better Call Saul, Deputy, Interrogation, Midnight Texas. I mean, just name a few co-stars.
Yeah, the opportunities were there. I was a new face. I could connect. My strengths were good strengths. I could connect emotionally to the character and the scene. That was not a hard thing to do. I just had to make the emotional choices and commit to those and make sure I had an emotional arc. And the first year, I think I had maybe 6 auditions, but I had booked 4 of them, and that gave me a little bit of the wrong idea of the proportion of booking. And then every year since...
So that's a great start, right? I mean, it's very encouraging.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I needed it. I needed the encouragement, opportunities, and not feel like I necessarily deserved them, because I absolutely did not at that time. But I had just nothing to lose, so I would go all in, and eventually learn that there's no place to be timid in these roles, especially if they're character roles. If they're like a normal person on the street roles, and you just say the thing and you're part of the environment, that's different. But if you're there to kind of showcase this interesting character, that's a whole different thing, and it's no place to be shy. You gotta kind of be a badass when you get those opportunities, and no one will make you feel bad. You'll be rewarded for it, or you'll be like, or the directors will be like, no, that's wasn't quite the right thing to do, but nobody will make you feel bad about it. They appreciate the bold decision.
And that's something you've been honing your whole life, I think, being bold, being a real character, having all these different life experiences that you're now able to bring to the set.
It's taught me to be open, to accept parts of myself, to accept how I look, to accept that I'm a sensitive person, and then to bring my life experience into the mix is a definite advantage. I may not have done drugs, but I know what it's like to suffer. I know what it's like to have pain. So a lot of the character traits and stories that I'm asked to pretend that have happened, I don't have to go too far to pretend. So it's given me an advantage for sure.
And what was the type of character that you portrayed in News of the World?
In News of the World, it was another outlaw character. So I've been cast as an outlaw a few times. I think just because of my look, my age, and I fit into period stories. So if they need a guy to do a couple lines and get along with the other actors, they'll try to get me in there. And I only had 2 lines, and the casting director had sent a note saying that they were sorry that I only had 2 lines, but I was just thrilled to get on there. And then they gave me a clue that the director was open to improvising. So from that point on, the scenes that I was in, I was ready to add moments or dialogue. And so I was prepared for that. And then I saw that as a chance to fight for the camera and expand my role if I could.
How many lines did you end up having? Did they keep a little bit of your
my dialogue? Yeah, I had kind of just one moment in the film, and then the rest of that storyline, I was there still, but I didn't have anything else to say. I was just kind of there. So I only had one moment to really shine, and there wasn't direct blocking that we were told to do. And I wanted to make sure this was my chance to act with Tom Hanks. And it was time to be bold and brave. And then I thought, well, I'm going to make sure I'm within a couple feet from him so that I can act with him, tell my dialogue to him. And he's right by his co-star, Helena Zengel, and I want to interact with her too. And the scene allowed for it. So I went right up to them, and I stayed put and was confident about that. And nobody told me to move. And then ironically, I messed up my lines a couple times because the dialogue was an odd way of speaking. And despite practicing it 100 times, not exaggerating, in the moment there, I just went blank and forgot. I didn't know what I was doing. And that happened twice. And then Tom had said that he had felt bad for me, and that he said that sometimes all it takes is one word to throw you off. And I apologized to the director, but the director was just looked like he was having the time of his life. And he was very forgiving. He was never without a smile on set.
Really?
And then when I made a mistake, it made me slow down and really focus on what I was doing and getting into that moment, and made the moment bigger. And then they thankfully honored that focus and work by keeping all of it in the film. And I was very thrilled and thankful for that.
Wow. I think that is something that some actors do attempt in a little bit of a strategic way, but to actually do it authentically like you did, being, again, that bold character that you are. You know, you're really trying to take up the space. You're trying to, it's a showy character that you're trying to showcase because that's who you are and that's how you've trained.
I mean, in my personal life, I'm not that way. So, but I can be, different at home. So anyone who knows me they won't recognize for the most part when I portray these characters, but I'm having so much fun. And I've learned to just, within reason, do what I want. And most likely nobody will correct me and I try to use my intelligence, my creativity. And, after all these years, I believe that I understand my job is to make the material better, because it's not perfect in script form. And the characters that I do, the character traits in the description usually is tall man or thin man. And that's it. So I've learned to embrace that. And that's like an opportunity to make up who the guy is and how he behaves, how he reacts to everybody. And in that sense, nobody can tell me I'm wrong if I'm being smart about it. And most directors will allow changes, especially if it's not even scripted, what I actually do. And they'll allow it. And then as I've grown as an actor and with confidence, my intention always now is to steal the scene. And that sounds like kind of boastful, but I have to be like super confident, and I have to believe that I'm, there to be a part of the story. I'm there to be interesting, and they give me these interesting characters. So I'll only do justice if I am interesting and if I am a little unpredictable, and so there's only reason to be sorry if I don't, and there's no punishment if I do. Nobody has made me feel terrible for my choices. It's such a forgiving industry, and you wouldn't think that. You wouldn't think that, but that's been my experience.
I think that's a credit to you're seeking out Laura Cunningham and anyone else that's mentored, spoken with you, to the fact that expressing yourself and giving yourself that stage, that moment, that room. Sometimes you can hear, especially with auditions, what casting directors don't like is sometimes more prioritized than what a casting director actually does like, than all the things you should do or you can do. What are the possibilities? Which, ironically, I think with Zoom auditions and these EcoCast live auditions, you can hold a gun up to the camera and the casting director doesn't feel threatened. That's a big no-no, obviously, to people that are listening to this podcast and don't know. You're not supposed to bring a firearm. See, that's how often I'm around these things. A firearm to a casting director for an audition, workshop, what have you. But on Zoom, now we have a little bit more license. We can do things that are a little bit bigger, bolder, create that environment. We have a lot more opportunity to reevaluate what we can do and what we can then, again, once we're able to go into these auditions, what we can bring in, not firearms, but you can do things that aren't necessarily spoken about in the script. You're not going to be necessarily penalized for it. I think there are too many books and too many teachers that they want to lay down these laws, these rules that you cannot break under any circumstances.
It feels very individualistic, if that's the right word. So I try not to have anything I say be advice, because it's very specific to me and to my path and to what works with me.
I completely agree. It's very
and
tricky
it's
to talk about acting in the business. And
right.
sometimes advice that you give to a young career actor isn't the advice you'd give to someone that's in the middle of their career or is an extremely experienced actor.
And I haven't gotten a lot of advice. I've gotten mostly support. But if I gotten strict advice or do it this way or that way, I think I would have been scared to make choices for myself. And so I've rarely been scared, or I've been too ignorant to be scared. And it's benefited me. So
I think so.
That's the route I take. And of course I want to help and support other actors, but sometimes I have to be careful with making suggestions because that it might not work for them for any number of reasons. So that's something I'm learning.
You got to know just enough, but not too much. You got to have that confidence, but not that fear. It's a weird window.
Right. And they have to learn for themselves, just like I did. And I think it's better that way.
Yeah. But boy, you've gotten to learn on some of the greatest sets in New Mexico and in Hollywood. I mean, News of the World is up for a lot of awards. So that's incredibly impressive that you were able to have that experience.
I sometimes I feel like it's bizarre that this is another big long dream, and that I don't belong here and that I don't belong doing what I'm doing. And that also helps me be fearless because I'm like, well, if this is a dream, I'm just going to go all out. And then I continue to feel like I have nothing to lose. And I'm continually rewarded for trying something that I think is going to work better than what's written, or adding moments. There's always room for moments that are in between the dialogue or reactions that might be surprising. And you have to rely on each other to make it as real as can be, because you're only pretending to a degree, but you really want to get some real reactions out of each other. So for myself, I've learned that I need to be closer to the person, usually for a confrontation, to be in physical contact with the person. And that can help too. And then it makes it more intimate and intense. And so that can make it feel much more real, than being 5 feet away from a person. Your body and your mind your emotions are going to react to somebody threatening you or complimenting you or grabbing you. It's going to be pretty real after a few takes. So that's what I've learned for myself. And I try to do that every time.
Your instincts get a chance to reveal themselves.
Yeah, and that's really cool. And you can't plan for that. And sometimes that feels scary that you're studying the scene weeks before and you try to figure it all out. But 50% of what happens is going to happen in the moment and on the set, and you just have to accept that. And
in television as well, it's you have such limited time. And it does seem in particular that the text is king because of the limited time. We got to get this. We're losing light. More than a feature film it always seems there's a little bit more air in a feature film than there is for a TV show, mostly because I suppose, and this is happening less and less, there is a release date of maybe Tuesday where it's going to be on CBS.
Yes. There does seem to be a little more freedom to play on a film set. They might take all day for a scene, and a TV show might have a max of 2 hours to do it. And they're dialed in with their dialogue and their and what's happening and the plot and stuff, and it's more strict. And I've learned to sneak in my own stuff there, or find my moments to make it my own. And then especially to make sure I have dialed in what emotionally is happening. Because very often on TV shows, they'll give you your minute and they'll give you a close-up. And so it's demanded of you to really give it to them and give them something special. And even though you might only be in one scene in 1 minute, you can really make the most of it and be proud of your work. And And so that's what I try to do on TV shows.
I've noticed in some scripts where a word is missing, like a the, or there's some other indication where you can tell that the writers are good writers, but it's also a little bit of a clue saying you don't have to be letter perfect, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to hint at what I'm going for.
Yeah.
And not in a too general a way, but still it's almost, you can almost feel the encouragement from a writer saying, this is what this scene needs to be pretty much. So please live it honestly and bring stuff to it, because that's why we hired you.
Yeah. Then that's definitely where respect comes in, because they're trusting that you can bring a character to them. They're not writing a boring person, because that wouldn't be kept in the show. They're writing a really interesting person, but they don't have the time to write a huge backstory for that person. They're trusting actors to bring it. And the longer I do this, even if I have 5 lines in a show, the writers give you enough clues to tell you who this person is, what their education level might be, what their attitude is about their current situation, because a lot of times they'll be in prison, what their feelings are, little clues about what their feelings are about the people they're interacting with. And then you take those clues and run with it and lean into it and make it bigger. And that's what has worked for me.
I love that. Where is that works the most for you in your different co-star roles and appearances in film?
Because a lot of times I'll just be a dark character and a criminal and a drug addict. The challenge is to make them seem like different people. And I don't know how much I succeed at that, but I try. So like in Better Call Saul, I had very little dialogue in that. And I was kind of at that point tired of being like miserable characters in their world, in their dark world. And they kind of had to be. They had to be angry or threatening. But this guy, the only note is that he was energetic. And I took that note and I made it enthusiastic as his energy. And because he didn't have much dialogue, I had room to play with his energy, and I made him just have an enjoyable day. That he wasn't a dark person, even though he was going to buy drugs. He loves his neighborhood and he loves his drug dealer, and he loves these interesting spots. So they figure out to send the drugs down, and he was having a good day, and I didn't share all that, with the director or the casting director. And that's just how I wanted to do it, just to be different. And it works. And so with every character that's only in the screen for a minute, I make sure there are differences in how they feel about their environment, and especially the people they're interacting with. That's where the most freedom is, I think.
Wow.
To make them different.
And the most power as well. Like you were saying at the top of the podcast about, I felt that it was powerful to say no to working maybe as crew in the New Mexico film industry. But now it's so much power that you're finding as an actor plugging into the industry. You're finding what you want to do and you're doing it.
And a lot of times sometimes I feel like not much is expected of me. I don't know if other actors feel like that. But because a lot of times I'll book a small co-star role and sometimes it's a big project, I do feel that there's the expectation that I of course am not as good, as the lead, but I believe that I have to be as good as them to even be a professional actor. I should be outstanding. So I try to prove that I'm on equal terms with them in the scene, that we're both outstanding actors. And a few times the director or the writer will come over and will say, "Hey, you're a good actor." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, like I'm supposed to be." And that's given me the impression that that
Oh boy.
there's room to impress them if I try really hard, and to not feel like I'm being mistreated with these roles, but I can impress them and surprise them, and who knows what will come of that. And that's one of the exciting things.
Again, that's very revealing. And you've never found there to be any negative recompense? Oh, tone it down, or they get a little cross with you for being a little bit showy or scene?
No, I mean, the more I do it, I'm trying to find a balance between going big and then subtlety. Most of the scenes I would be in, I freak out. I'm the guy who freaks out. And so he's supposed to go pretty big, or he's supposed to, he says something really threatening, or he has a death scene. So it's really dramatic stuff. And then I'm starting to get auditions where it calls for some ordinary interactions. So there wouldn't be a reason to be threatening or, be very emotional. And so I think that's one of the ways I'm having to grow is to, not every moment is like the moment of this character's life. And sometimes it is, and they die, or, but sometimes it's not. And I'm hoping that is a reward from, having progress, is that I'll be in more, I'll have a bigger part in stories. And so I won't be there just to die, or to, or to kill someone, or to beat someone up, or swear at them.
Yeah.
So it's a new challenge.
Yeah. Saying that, obviously not every scene on TV and film is about a character's most important moment in their life, but it is an interesting moment in their life.
Right.
Otherwise, in the movie, they don't show the scene, even in 24, where Kiefer Sutherland's on the toilet, because that's not very interesting. You know how that goes.
But he should be, feeling something or thinking about something, and so it's still important and it still matters, but it's surely a challenge for sure.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the Carolina Talent Agency and Management Group. Okay. Is that something that you found when you were traveling across the country, or something that now that you've been in New Mexico and you've been establishing yourself, as we've been talking about through co-stars and appearances in these star-studded films, that you've been starting to branch out?
It was, I wanted to start branching out because I did feel a little bit of dependency. I felt some dependency on the projects that came here, even though the projects here are outstanding. The Coen brothers come here and Clint Eastwood comes here. But I felt a dependency, and I didn't like that. I wanted to feel a little bit more freedom, and I'm a little bit of nonconformist. So once I decided that I wanted to book out of state and work elsewhere on shows that I love, or movies that might film elsewhere, I just kind of put that out there. And then a friend, a theater actor in Colorado, he referred me to his North Carolina agent. Okay. And so it's an agent, and his partner is a manager, and it's been good. I don't get as many auditions, but I do get auditions for generally bigger roles, for guest stars, recurring, and on shows, that I would not get a chance to be on.
Thanks for listening to the Hollywood Actor Podcast. If you like this content, don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and share.